Do you want to start us off, Ian?
Sure. Yeah. So we're gonna get into it now, and there's like 10 of us total. So we want this to be useful for you. So at any point, please interrupt or say, "No, I got this," whatever it might be. Like, ask questions. If you're more comfortable asking questions in the chat, use the chat. If you want to just jump off, by all means, do that. I will also share transparently. It's Kayant and I's first time leading this presentation, and we slash Kanta. Kanta was furiously editing it like this last couple of days. So if you got any feedback about what you would love to see differently in the future or whatnot, just please let us know. They can keep this as informal and as informative as we need to. And so I'm going to jump in with the first slide here, just around what we put together a couple of slides of what we hope you will walk away. And this has resonated a lot with me as I've worked with our PAC and various sort of parts of it and seen other PACs. Just at its core, the most important thing I would say that a PAC can do is create a strong community. And I remember for myself when I was looking into schools, I just went into my catchment school. Makes it sound so much more whatever. But before my son was in kindergarten, I asked my sister, who's been a teacher for a very long time in Toronto, like what to think about for schools and what was important. And she put it to me as you kind of want three things. You need a strong administrator, a great group of teachers, and a strong parent community. And if you have those things working, your school is going to be fantastic. But creation of that parent community really can't be left up to chance, and really does require, I have found, like can be strengthened greatly by PAC involvement. And of course, community includes all the people in the community. There's lots of challenges with PACs to get to be representative of the whole community and all of that, but trying to find those opportunities. So yeah, that's our first key takeaway. It's all about community. Kianta, anything you want to add?
Nope, you got it.
Second key takeaway, we've got four of these key takeaways, then we get into a little bit more detail. But the second is all around support. We hope that you know that we are here to support you, to raise your voice. So there might be times where PACs need their voices elevated to the school board or to other PACs to coordinate with them. We are here to help. We have a fair bit of community knowledge, so we might already know an answer to a question. And if we don't know the answer, we can absolutely help you find the answer to a question. The other side of support is we're going to ask you for your support to do the same. So the way that we elevate the voice of one PAC is by connecting them to other PACs. So we hope that whether it's through participation in the general meetings, emails, PAC to PAC Slack, whatever that might be, that you also help to elevate the voice of others, so that while most of your focus might be around that local community and building that community capacity within your own area, where you have the capacity, whether it's something as small as sending an email or saying hi on Slack, you can help to grow that overall parent community in Vancouver, and help to align your PAC around issues that impact more than one school, because that's where we get more and more strength and greater support for parents.
And I would add that one of our focuses this year really is trying to figure out the communication part of supporting the PACs and asking them for support. So we're always looking to use our communication tools the best we can with Slack and email and our meetings, and we're always open to feedback on what's working or what's not working. So
And we know we have some opportunities. Like a thing we are working on right now is making it clear what Ocean's PAC, DPAC has passed in the past, or what stuff do parents already stand for, and gathering that. So please, we're certainly open to feedback. Number three, we hope that you remember, it seems straightforward, but be kind and thankful, especially to each other and those on your own PAC. Many PACs do run into conflict, especially as they go through transitions, and especially so I find something's working great, and then a couple people leave the school for whatever great reason, and then new people come in and it's like different. And there's going to be times where we rub up against each other. There's going to be times where not everybody in the community agrees. Just we do need to remember and we're going to talk about some of the commitments we're all making, but we're also all volunteers, including all of us here on DPAC. So we just always encourage everyone to take care of each other. Super, super important, and just have each other backs. Somebody's not gonna be able to make it. Sometimes you're gonna have to multitask, or things just gonna have to wait. That's part of the deal. We're not employees, we're all volunteers. And the last takeaway we hope you get for sure are some tips and tricks. So as we go through, we will try to share these, and hopefully they're sort of built in throughout the presentation, but we'll toss them out as we think of them. And if anyone here has any great ones, please feel free to toss them into the chat. I know for myself over the years, it's often that like little thing that somebody didn't think was a big deal that was a game changer for me. So I really appreciate when you toss them in. I mean, we have a variety of them sort of already on here, like how important minutes can be. They're never important until suddenly you need them for something. And like, oh my God, I hope we have those. And this is a topic I need to bring up with my own PAC. Start succession planning in November, because nobody wants to be the chair in most PACs. So get ahead of it. But we hope there'll be a bunch of these as we go. And so with that, we will dive right into it.
So, I think it seems sometimes obvious to say, you know, what a PAC is, that it's the Parent Advisory Council, but that advisory portion is really important. It is the voice of parents in the school, that allows them to give information on their kids' experience to the school and to the school district. And one of the things that we found that we really need to, and you probably have found this all as well, that it's always important to say to the parents at your schools, you are automatically a member of PAC. You have a kid at this school, you're a member of PAC. You don't have to do anything else. We'll get more into the BC School Act later a little bit, and there'll be links that'll come out. But PACs and DPACs are all legislated in the School Act to be the voice for parents. PACs are not a social club. The social aspect is super important. It is part of building community. It is part of supporting each other. It is part of learning from each other. But I think one of the things, and we'll talk more about this later, is it's important to make sure that that social aspect is inclusive and representative of the community that you're a part of.
And I'll share transparently on my own Parent Advisory Council. It's mostly made up of people who I probably would never have known or have been friends with. And that is a lot of the fulfillment of it. And there's a number of them who at times given choice probably also would not hang out. But that PAC has brought this sort of motley crew together is part of what has made our PAC actually really successful, because it is a diverse group of skill sets of people who don't normally all just hang out. And there's been, for us, great benefit. And we have a lot more work to do in general in diversity, but just in terms of coming from different places, for sure. But Kanta, why are there PACs?
Well, that's a great question, Ian. I thought actually we'd put this out to the group. No, go back.
Sorry, I didn't mean to. It's a touchpad, so if I just press my finger, I can accidentally advance slides. I got to be careful.
So
who knows what'll happen next?
No, I thought we'd put this out to everyone, and just you can put it in the chat, or you can speak out on why you think there are PACs, because it's always useful to hear other people's experiences and opinions and thoughts. Fundraising, that's one definitely we hear. Is there any other function that you think are really important to what a PAC does? Share info, connect, support. Yeah. Creating community is a huge one. Okay, do you want to go ahead, Ian? You're the driver.
I'm the
So
bad driver.
these,
There you go.
that's okay. Um, these are the things that we had come up with. Improving parent representation at the school level. So making sure that parents have a voice in their kids' education. Building inclusivity, building a community and respect and belonging for that whole community. Advising and communication. So that's communicating with your parent community, but also getting to know your parent community and being able to communicate their concerns and their wishes to the administrators at the school.
Just on that as well, I would add that definitely there's an area around concerns and improvements, but we've found sharing the parent voice, just like often parents know, especially for new administrators, parents know way more about the school a lot of the time than the admin. And there's often little tips and tricks and bits of communication that parents can provide that are really helpful to set up administrators for success and to behave in ways that parents hope that they will. But without that connection, it can definitely get lost.
Mm-hmm. Building community and creating belonging is one of the central ones. Fundraising is important, and then it's also something that brings up a lot of discussion. And I don't know if you've had those discussions happen at your school, but there's concerns about parents raising money for things that should be covered by the funding from the ministry, and the ministry or VSB not being aware that parents are funding the things that they are, which yes, they are aware, but I think there is an example, great example. The last finance meeting I went to at VSB in September, they were talking about costs, different line items, and I brought up, actually Ian suggested that we ask if they had a line item for how much money had been raised by parents and then spent on things like technology or items for schools. And they kind of danced around it a little bit and said, well, we've got a line item, but it's not very much. And then I talked to them after the meeting about, the tens of thousands of dollars we know that schools are raising for technology. But then they seem very surprised when they hear about that. So
We're looking for some transparency.
yeah.
And there's two pieces to there's so many pieces to this, and sorry to jump on. I get so caught up on this one, but we know, for example, that PACs raised without grants, but just donations, over $440,000 for Vancouver schools last year. And when you add in grants and whatnot, there's a school like that fundraised and did a grant for a playground. So there's like another 250 grand or something that they got through their grant. So it gets there's a lot of money. And then there's a whole complex conversation that probably worth individual PACs having to a degree around inequity, right? Because some PACs have more ability to get money than other PACs. Sometimes that is tied to what you think is the obvious socioeconomic situation of the geography of a school. Sometimes, though, that's unrelated because there's a whole bunch of schools in what are middle-class neighborhoods where, to afford to live there, both parents have to work various different jobs. And actually the PACs often in those, like, on the outside, whatever, great neighborhoods actually have weak, if any, school community because of the demands of parents just to survive. So it's not always as obvious as you think. And there are some examples of like lower equity areas or schools. There's not many, but where a school's being like is on a list, and so they actually end up getting more money than they expected that they would get because they happen to be. So it's not always as straightforward. But the other part of it is that, so anyway, and then there's the perpetual tension between what should VSB / most honestly the province be funding, and what are we masking. but then there's also the realities that I think many of us feel in our schools of like, that's a great fight to fit or fight to have, but my kid's in school right now,
Yeah.
and it's going to take 30 years to change the funding model. And so I think there can be tension around that. But where we've landed, at least at our school, and it's mostly working quite well for us, is when we fundraise, we do it with the intent to do the star above of building community. So yes, there's some to fix a problem, and yes, we might want to go. We needed keyboards for the music room. We're so lucky to have a music room, so that was the thing we did. But the way we approach gathering that money is always around encouraging volunteerism, connection, and making it about the school rather than about the dollar figure.
Right.
And that's working well for us anyway.
Okay. That's really helpful. Thank you.
And I think just one other quick thing I want to add to the fundraising is, as Ian said, it's equity. It's funding what, should possibly be funded by the ministry. And I think one of the goals that we're trying to have this year is to shed some light on what those numbers are so that it's a little more clear in the public eye of like how much parents are funding schools.
And so the specific, like for transparency, this will come up more in April, I guess, when we start budget conversations, or maybe February. It's my favorite time of year with VSP. But there's a line in the VSP budget that says donations, and there's a line that says grants. And we'd like to push for that donations line, or keep a donations line, which is fine because they probably get separate donations, but we'd like a line that says like parent donations, which would be the PAC based accounts at all the schools. It'll miss all of the money that is in parent advisory. There are our own bank accounts that'll never be included in the VSP plan because obviously they don't have visibility to it. We probably don't even want to give them visibility to all of our bank accounts, but all the money that PAC's put into that school bank account is visible in their system, and we'd like that money flagged as parent donations because it is, and that's how it's already in their system. And I think it makes for a clearer conversation, even though we know it misses probably more than half of the money that parents contribute.
Great question, Marina. Okay, do you want to? Awesome. So just I don't think we'll spend a huge amount of time on this slide, as I think most people are aware of some of the activities that PACs create, but promoting parent involvement, communication with the school and the district on behalf of the parents, providing parent education, looking for speakers during meetings. We've got a little duplication there. Sorry for that. Assisting parents and students in obtaining information, providing a forum for discussion of educational issues, and organizing events and activities for students and parents, providing financial support, so fundraising.
And
council.
I'd be curious to hear from other groups. I don't know where you're at. I'll just like super transparently from at least my school's experience over the last 7 years, the parent education bit, we've never had parents care. However, when parent education things have come from the school, they have cared. So that's an interesting thing. So we've often just pushed the school and said, hey, can you do a thing on Soji, or what's your plan with whatever? And they've often done that. The flip side is our best and most popular guests at any parent advisory council general meeting we've had have always been teachers. And so we've done a bunch of stuff of like, hey, ask our librarian anything, or we've got this teacher who you've heard of does this in the school. And when we've brought them in for like 15, 20 minutes, we've gotten better responses than we've gone out and said, oh, parents really care about this issue, and we found someone who would be a speaker. Parents like, I mean, I care, but I'm not going to come to the meeting. So that's been my school's experience. I don't know if that's true for others, but it's another way of thinking is teachers make great special guests.
Does anybody else have any guests or speakers that they've had that have been really valuable? I'm willing to list some of mine, but I thought I'd give somebody else a chance to. So at Tyee, every year we kind of almost have a tradition of at Tai, we always have the people who are doing our lice check come in and do an evening of lice education. Makes a bunch of people squirm, but it's good information to have. And if you have 2 kids with long hair, which I did at one point, these are skills that you use a lot.
Sorry, who ran that session?
We used Lice 911 for years, but they're not in business anymore. So
Okay.
I'd have to find out who we're using now.
Okay.
That's a hot tip.
Yeah. Who pays for them to come in? The PAC?
It was the PAC, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
My kids have had lice 3 times in like 2 years, so.
Yeah, yeah. And I guess Tai might be unusual in this is in that we have lice checks. We have the like Lice 911 or whatever come in 3 times a year. And it's an opt-out policy. So if you don't want your kid checked, then you have to send in the form to opt out.
Okay. That's covered by the PAC. That
It's covered by the PAC as well.
okay.
But you could use a gaming grant for that, right? Because it's not curricular, so you don't have to fundraise for it necessarily. A gaming grant would cover it.
And the other one that we usually have in every other year is Salima Noon. And she comes in, she talks to the kids, but she also does a parent education night.
And we have found with Salima Noon, who we also love, the school has been able to bring her in and do a parent night. And so at our PAC, we've not paid for it or done it as a PAC thing. We supported it and said, hey, go, go, go. But we haven't had to bring her in ourselves. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good to know because we always pay for it.
Well, I mean, then your school gets money for other stuff and you're paying for, like who knows?
Oh, yeah.
It all works out. But yeah, we again, but this is partially because our PAC has more or less given up on speakers because we just had such low turnout. But she's actually an example. We were trying to do stuff. No one was coming in, and the school's like, hey, we brought in Salima, and we're like, thank you. And it was like great turnout. Everyone loved it, of course. And so.
Okay.
All right, we'll carry on.
So this one is more a slide that I think will be really useful when we post it. But it's something that I really wanted to keep in here. So I don't know how many people are aware of BCC PAC. But it is, so there's 3 layers. There's the PACs, there's DPAC, which is district level, and BCC PAC is provincial. And so it is the parent voice at the provincial level, directly to the ministry. They have a leadership manual that is on their website. And it is really useful and it is a great resource. I know we use it quite regularly. And there's 6 sections that we usually sort of tag for people, but sections 4, which is getting started in your PAC and DPAC, section 6, Constitution and bylaws, section 7, roles, responsibilities, and accountability of PAC and DPAC executives, section 8, code of ethics and conflict of interest, section 9, which is decision-making in PACs and DPACs, and section 10, which is representing all voices, building an inclusive council. Now, section 10, they have not updated for a number of years. They know they need to update it, but like us, they are volunteers. So they're working on it. But yeah, so those sections are really good reference tools when you're trying to figure out just kind of the nuts and bolts of running your PAC, figuring out, I know we've had some questions about constitutions and bylaws, and that's a good place to start.
In fact, I read that today. I had no idea. The Constitution is just, what's your PAC all about? We don't have one as a PAC, but it seems like a good idea.
Yeah. So, and actually, do you want to take this one, Ian? Because I feel like I've been talking a lot.
Sure. Yeah, happy to. So this has been a bit of a, like, I'll just start personally. The concepts around this have been, for me, a little bit eye-opening. I joined the PAC, like helping out a bit as a volunteer in kindergarten, and then, you know, suddenly here we are 8 years later and I'm in DPAC. But the reality is, and I've seen this change in our school, that a PAC can have a PAC regardless has a significant impact. Sometimes that impact is relatively negative because there is no impact, and that has a negative impact on schools, intentionally, unintentionally, and no fault there, just it's a reality. But they can also have a hugely positive impact. But there are some realities. You know, we are elected representatives. I'll share again in my example, and I've seen this both at DPAC and at my PAC. We're elected kind of by no one because it's mostly by acclamation, unless it's outside of an AGM, right? So it doesn't always feel like we're elected, but we're stepping up into an elected role. The reality is we do make plans for the community. So if we decide to do a fundraiser, that is us deciding what our community should look and feel like. Which is also setting the tone of the community. And it's not thought, it often is not thought of that way. We try to think about more and more this way, but like, what's that mean? And it can be really positively powerful. We had an amazing fundraiser who came into our school. She grew up in like a family of like, we fundraise and we sell Chatelaine magazine and we whatever. And she for a year, we did a thing, not every Friday, but consistently, at least once a month, we did a thing called Funky Fridays. And it was just, we made popcorn and sold hot chocolate or a drink or water, whatever, depending on the time of year. And it was $1 or $2 a bag. And at our school, it's always been everyone gets, like, if you don't have money, we don't care. Well, I forgot your wallet, can never afford it, doesn't matter. You still get to participate. But I have never seen kids so excited to come out of school on a Friday, and it created this whole vibe of people hanging out. And we raised some nominal amount of money. It was probably financially not worth it to make that much popcorn. Like, and if you ever want to talk about popcorn and popcorn machines and all that, like, I can go deep. But those choices do set a tone and really enhanced our community. And we could have said, no, we charge everyone, or no, we don't do this, or we're calling it, and all of these different decisions that we could make that would have changed it. So it's really stood out to me how you can set the tone and make those plans. And then, of course, I unfortunately have been so bored, but now fascinated by learning about bylaws and all of these things, because again, they're like meeting minutes. You mostly don't need them until you do. And then you're like, oh, shoot, I'm governed by this document. And if I'm okay. And so it really is worth looking at and understanding so that you can make the document that works best for your community. And similarly, setting the agenda, like, we get to decide what's in the meeting. And if you've ever wondered about I have often taken that for granted. And I think certainly there's still people on our PAC who takes that for granted, but I'll tell you, showing up to VSB meetings makes you not take it for granted when you start to realize the power of what it means to set an agenda. Now, we're lucky that we roll pretty informally, but some PACs are more formal. I just think being thoughtful about what does it mean to set the agenda. And sometimes it's not even just the agenda for the meeting. It's when we say this is what's important to parents. Is it? Or is it what we've said is important to parents? So there's a lot that can go there. And similarly, like defining the scope of the community. Do we want a big community, a small community? Are we all engaged? Is everyone invited? Or some people are not invited? Like it can get complicated. And I don't mean to overcomplicate it. I just mean that we've all chosen to put up our hands and help out our community, probably because we wanted to make sure it was as good as it could be for our kids. And we have some recognition of the power of community and parent engagement. And I talk a lot in our school, but that's the number one way to make a safe school, is so that if parents recognize each other and kids recognize parents, your school is going to be safer. There's no other security that you can ever pay for that will be as secure. But these boil down to like individual people choices and what we decide to do, and if we show up, and if that kind of thing. So I just with intention, it can be incredibly fulfilling, and sometimes I know for myself, being surprised at outcomes. So, and then of course, everyone's favorite quote when we talk about it with great
with great power,
we have more power than we think, and so then there's this responsibility.
I could not put that.
I just think it's funny because I was like, I saw this come up, and then no one ever puts the actual comic that it came from. We all go, oh, it's the Spider-Man quote. And then I was like, oh, right. This is like the cartoon where he's sad that his like uncle's dead. Like, it's heavy. Anyway,
You'll
So
find the actual panel.
it's,
Um,
yeah,
but yeah,
uh,
you can continue on.
I will. Maybe do you want to speak a little bit about the schedule? Like, just I guess we started to get into it, but that it's not.
Yeah, I
I,
think
yeah.
the next few slides, I don't actually want to like read them through, but they are were put together by our Black and Indigenous working group, I think a few years ago. And I actually didn't touch these slides because I think that they have a really important message. They really are clear in the importance of being aware of our natural bias and to make sure that we are working to be inclusive of all members of our community. And sometimes that is as simple as, extending an invitation to a meeting. Sometimes it is taking a moment to think about, how this policy or procedure, or taking a look at your bylaws and your constitution and making sure that, all of your groups have an opportunity to speak and be represented, and that you're open to the diversity within your community. Yeah, so it's just, this is a good reminder of what your roles are and the importance that your roles hold. Simple things as, yes, you set the agenda for your meeting, but making sure that it is clear that parents have an opportunity to add things to that agenda. That there is a spot at the end of your agenda for any other business. So that if people want to raise something, concern, an idea at the meeting, that they have that opportunity. Also go ahead.
Oh, sorry, go ahead. Well, yeah, you go.
I was going to move on to importance of transparency in documents. So if you're not there yet, you go ahead.
Well, so just again, linked to the equity conversation, as we said, many parents who you may want to include cannot always be included, and so certainly at our best, and we are not always at our best. Again, in our school, we'd at least been had parents within the PAC who have those other personal connections and can go leverage them. And so in an idealized world, I think we have this super inclusive PAC that is really diverse, PAC exec. The reality is that your PAC, because every parent is on it, is diverse. And so how you connect into it is sometimes the other part of it. So it's not to say that, like, the ideal, it'd be great if every exec looked exactly like the school looks. But people are all coming from different places, right? So what matters even more, because that's a bit of a huge stepping stone for some PACs to get to, is how are you connecting into all the communities, and just, do you have someone on the PAC or on the exec who can connect in and find out and make sure that those voices are heard and seen and represented, at least as a starting point. So
Thanks, Ian. Yeah. And I was just going to move on to transparency of documents. So making sure that your documents that are accessible to your community. So if you have a bylaw and constitution, make sure they're on your website. Make sure they're accessible. Your minutes are really important. Even though I know sometimes it feels like your minutes are never read. I find very often they are read, or they are referred to later on, when people, have an interest in, checking something out, or, oh, what happened with this? And as we all know, of course, it's super important how the finances are handled, making sure that that's transparent. We are going to have a Treasurer 101 next Tuesday, run by Alan, our past treasurer, and David Schwab, who is hopefully incoming. He's up for election. if you haven't voted, go vote, who's up for election for our executive. So thank you to both of them for running that for us on Tuesday.
I'm gonna move through these
Yeah.
maybe because we don't.
So what I was going to say is that, yeah, that video back there is like homework. It's really great. I really enjoy watching it. It talks about inclusivity, but whenever we play it on Zoom, it lags. So that's your homework. When we put it up on the website, go back, click the link and watch that little video. Sorry, I'm going to move my chat window over.
Oh, sorry, I wasn't sure if you were.
I think that is very much what we've been talking about. Yeah. So do you want to just go ahead?
Here we go.
Um,
So meetings, Cancer, your favorite. Sharing meetings.
Sure. Yeah. So yes, I love chairing meetings so much. Actually, I don't mind it, but I get very nervous, which I feel is super obvious, but who knows? Anyways, so yeah, the important parts that you want to always have to your meetings. Make sure your attendees are welcomed. That doesn't always have to be an introduction, a round robin introduction. You do what is right for your community and what is right for your time frame as well. Land acknowledgement, I think we're all aware that that has become a really important part of the beginning of your PAC meeting. It shows a respect for the land that we're on and an awareness of the Indigenous population and community. So approve the meeting agenda. That's one of those items you just want to make sure that everybody has taken a look at the agenda and that they're okay with everything that's on there. And, maybe they want to add something at that point. Or maybe something has, it's not applicable that evening. It needs to be carried over to the next meeting. Approving last meeting's minutes. Sometimes there's reviews and corrections. So and that's one of the important things that I've found has been a real learning for me over the last few years on, PAC and DPAC is making sure that your minutes are available to the public in time for your community to read them. So, an hour or 2 hours before, usually I just say at that point, we'll carry it over and approve it at the next meeting. Usually there's guidelines in your bylaw and your constitution, but if you're a school that doesn't have one of those, then, try to come to an agreement.
And just in terms of agendas, like I'll share, I know, again, maybe just outing our own dirty laundry, we're often super loosey-goosey with it. And I actually don't, I don't mind it because I kind of like loosey-goosey, but there's a bunch of problems with it that I don't recommend. And I think like just transparent, I know something's happened to me and something that definitely happens to our current chair and every chair I've worked with is like, oh crap, I forgot to build the agenda. And it's going to happen. We had a slide earlier that said, give yourself a break. We're all volunteers. The flip side of that is, please, I really encourage you to make sure there's an agenda before the meeting for both the exec, especially the exec. Honestly, at an elementary school level, the agenda for the general meeting, you should have one so you can have an ordered meeting. If it goes out for everyone, I find parents are showing up kind of either way because they want to hear from the principal, at least at our school. But in both cases, the more you can have planned beforehand and share with people, the better they're able to participate, and you have a better meeting every single time, and it's not just random idea here and random idea there and chaos. So I do encourage people to be forgiving because it's not always going to be great, but it really helps. And it really helps the secretaries, and we've got at least one on the call, like there's no agenda and you're trying to take notes and you're just like, what am I supposed to report back on? I don't even know. So help them out.
And yeah, recurring reports. So chair, principal, teacher, treasurer committees. One of the recommendations that I had received when I was at PAC, and I think it really made a difference, was we had a habit of always having our principal at the end because she was very verbose. And we didn't want to start off with that and have it, like a half-hour principal report, and then we had no time to actually cover our items. We ended up switching it though, because we realized unintentionally we were sending her the message of she is the least important thing in the meeting. And so we went and had a conversation with her and said, hey, we realize we're doing this and this was not our intention at all. And just kind of said, okay, so we're going to give you 15 minutes. We're going to put you right at the beginning because we want to respect your time. And you are really one of the key people that people come to listen to, parents come to listen to. And it really helped our relationship with her. So, do most schools have a teacher attend the PAC meeting? That's a really good question. I'm going to put that out to the group. Do other people want to weigh in on that? Norma Rose Point, do you have any teachers that show up? No?
Tried that. Oh, can I just?
Yeah, please do.
So last year we tried that because we noticed just to in the school, because after COVID, I feel like there was a big disconnect.
Mm-hmm. We can't hear you. Oh no.
Here, maybe if I take, can you hear me now?
Yeah, now we can hear you.
Okay, so yeah, there was a big disconnect. So we had like the project teacher, the librarian, some of the teachers that teach like the entire school or have points of contact with entire population, or at least half of them. The parents have a better idea of what happens in the school beyond, sometimes beyond what they do within the classroom. So I think that really helped as well, and parents were always more engaged in that way.
Is it like a teacher rep that's been, they kind of decide will come to all the meetings, or is it just you invite each meeting, you reach out to, I don't know, the principal to ask for a teacher to come, or?
If any, well, Henny figures out audio. I'll share that at our school we've done it similarly, I think, to Henny, where it's like, at least for us, it's been a draw. So we don't always have the same teacher. So we always have our principal. We're elementary school. We always have our principal. We have kept our principals at the end. Maybe we need to mix that up. I don't know. Can't take a notes. I think anyway. Sometimes maybe we have based on scheduling stuff, but for teachers, we used it absolutely as a way to show, like, because parents want to know what's going inside the school. Like our vice chair and our principal come all the time, and we, during COVID and post-COVID, when kids weren't allowed in the school, they would bring a PowerPoint of like photos inside the school. I actually think we could do a bit more of that still, because a lot of our working parents don't ever see the inside of the school, and note to myself that that's something we should still do. But we've also done the same thing as Henny, where it's like, who's a teacher who hits a broad population, and then brought that. So always really popular. Our librarian, Mr. W, has to be pretty awesome. We have a prep teacher who does a thing called Edible Ed, and he does our garden and other stuff. So he's like a huge hit. But I think being like, yeah, we don't do it every month because we just like don't have enough teachers or prep teachers for that. It'd be like, here's the grade 2 teacher, and everyone else would be like, I don't care. Unless there was a specific reason that they were, here's a grade 2 teacher to present about this like cool thing that impacts the whole school. Okay.
Mm-hmm. So we've at TIE, it's a choice program focusing on Montessori. And so we would every couple of years, it used to be a regular thing, and then it kind of fell off, partially because of COVID, where we would have one of the grade 1, 2, 3 teachers come and just kind of teach about the basics of Montessori and how They use the tenets of Montessori to teach the kids and the different tools that they use and that kind of thing. And that was always a big draw. So, yeah.
And to be clear, we're talking, like, for me anyway, I'm talking about our general meetings. We at our PAC exec at the school level don't invite teachers or the admin. We have separate things for that. So
do you want to take this one, Ian, or do you want me to?
I was just looking, yeah, sure. I was just trying to look and see if I feel like we hit pretty much all of these points. But thank you. My son just brought me a water. Amazing.
Nice. I think
I
one
wonder what he wants.
item that's worth mentioning is number 7, voting should be anonymous if possible. I know I haven't always agreed with that, but I think, we don't always know where our parents are coming from as far as like what their experiences have been and what they're sensitive to or not sensitive to. So, if you can do an anonymous vote, it's worth taking the time to do that.
So the trick on how to do an anonymous vote is that you need, so I'll assume a Zoom meeting here. So in person, obviously we could probably all figure out ways to do an anonymous vote with paper and a box. But on Zoom, the trick is to set up a poll in advance. It's really hard. It's really almost not feasible to do an anonymous vote on the fly. But in the advance, you can set up an anonymous vote. And if it was really important to you, and we do not do this, but again, maybe this is a good best practice, but like we're rolling with what we got. You could have a standing poll that really just said yes or no to the vote. And obviously you would say what the vote is, but then you could publish that vote and people could vote yes or no. And you would know within the context of the meeting what that vote was for. Would be a like a workaround to always have one available. We at our school are pretty good about it for things we know we need to vote on coming in. But I'll be honest, like this year, like, I don't know, our chair's laptop got stolen and we lost the guy who normally does our web stuff. And now I'm on DPAC, so I'm doing less of that. So it's like, we've done a lot of like check marks on the screen to vote. And it's not our preferred way, but so it's going to go up and down. But with some organization, it really does. It is possible. And I think it's a good way of doing it. And we've always done it, especially for anything contentious or could be contentious, for sure, especially, but everything is great. And this seems so obvious. We just said, I'm just going to keep on stressing it, like kindness and listening when guiding the conversation, because like odds are most PAC meetings are no worries, but there's one or two, or at least one I find every year where there's some topic that is coming up, and just the more we can help parents to have a kind conversation and set that tone, and just remembering we do have the power to set the environment. And some parents are going to come in hot, some parents are going to not know they're coming in hot, like there's a whole bunch of skills. But just remembering if we can set that up off the top, and we've gone so far as like when we know there's tough stuff going on, like I've had a full slide that says like lead with kindness. And I'm like, hey, tonight's meeting, before we go in, we're just going to talk about leading with kindness. Like we did this frequently during COVID. I actually think it was just like a standing slide that we had. So just remember that, especially if there's like maybe chance for a bit of a hotter conversation or a sticky conversation, just the more you can set that tone and create that space, it can go a long way. We can help at DPAC. That's interesting. DPAC. So if you are struggling with Zoom licenses or whatnot, we do have them. So they, like, again, depends on funds the school has. We can support this way. So just email Karen and she can help get you set up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have a bunch of licenses, and Karen sort of sets them up and then divvies it out to us to open the meeting, and then we hand over control to whoever on the PAC is designated.
And this is again a bit more on diversity, but honestly, just like great life practice about running a meeting. Is often always the chair running a meeting, which is fine, but just recognize that. So what do you do with it? Like, are you finding other voices to speak throughout? Are you asking somebody in? Just what does that look like? And creating that space, but with intention, it can go a long way. Oh, and there you go. David's got some tips in the chat about running meetings using Google Forms.
That's a great tip.
More chats. We've had this on a couple times. Have social time. It's funny. You can tell parts of this are an old presentation. Like, I don't know where. I'd actually be curious to hear where everyone's at. I know our PAC has moved almost to exclusively online, and we keep talking about trying to do a couple in person. I think we got one in-person meeting done last year. It was our June meeting. I keep thinking we could do like maybe the December one is like a holiday, like kind of like hangout, and then like the June one is a goodbye at least. But we're struggling, and we have not done a successful hybrid because of just like how do you microphone people and all that. So I'm just curious where, I don't know if everyone's in the same boat or what you're hearing at your schools.
How many do online meetings still? Yeah. Is everybody else in person? Yes.
Oh,
You in person?
Edwin's still in person. Winnie, you're doing hybrid. How is it working? What's the setup?
Yeah, actually, well, I mean, we're a small group, but yeah, a few of us who can make it, we will meet like in school library. And then we have our secretary set up for laptop with the Zoom. So it's been working okay. Scott, who is my co-chair, he has like some fancy microphone and everything. So like in that sense, like the audio and all that stuff is good.
Huh. I'm gonna have to
Okay.
reach out to you because we've talked about doing hybrid meetings, and I think we're struggling a little bit with how to do it. But yeah, I think it would be useful for executives at least to do it occasionally. Awesome.
Fancy microphone, I think, does go a long way. We do not have a fancy microphone, but it is a good idea.
We have access to one though. We have a secret tool.
We talked a little bit about this already, but just again on bylaws and records, they're dull until suddenly they're really important. Oh, did you lose me? Am I back? My computer said my connection was bad. So, anything else on records that you think is important to cover, Cancer?
No, I think most of this is going to be covered in Treasurer 101. So this, I want to see what people say. When do you think you should start planning for your next executives? When do you start planning for succession? Anybody want to take a guess of when do you think is a good time? You can put it in chat. You can speak up. March? September? Now. Yeah, exactly. Now. November is usually sort of the time that people start talking about it, mostly because it can be hard to bring people into the executive positions. People get scared about how much time it's going to take, or how they're going to balance things in the rest of their life. But yeah, it's worth reaching out and making connections, and not necessarily having to ask people directly, hey, do you want to be the chair next year? But just kind of making those connections and talking to people and helping educate them on what actually goes on behind the scenes. Because I think people tend to be nervous of what they're not familiar with. And so the more they know about the actual exec roles and what goes into it, and how, it is a volunteer position. So it is what you make it into, if you can only put X amount of time into it, then that's good enough. Yeah. And the tenet of, always leave your school pack better than when you arrived.
On this, I would add, so there's another piece of succession planning that I think is really important to consider is just process as well. So I know when I walked into our pack, and for a whole bunch of really valid reasons, there was nothing there. It was just like, what is going on? And there's actually really good reasons. I don't want to actually, but what does that look like, and what is that process? And someone new comes in, and how do they get the information? Or do they need a Google account? Or are you paying for a drive? Like, there's all these sort of mechanical things that are also worth spending some time on to have a conversation. So it's as easy as possible for somebody to step in. And in turn, so just, it sometimes gets underthought, but I think it's really important. And to Candace's point, I think certainly the more clear you can make what you're asking people to do, the better. And we have found a reasonable amount of success in our school of inviting parents to executive meetings. So we've sort of said generally anyone can come, and then we're bad about posting it, so not everybody does, and we've been hit or miss and whatever. Where we've had the most success, though, is when we've said, like, hey, I just met so-and-so, or so-and-so cares a lot about thing A. Like, this person really cares about cycling. Well, bring them into a meeting. And the people who care tend to want to come to a meeting. It's like, oh, great, I want to talk about my thing. And that is where we have gotten almost always all of our people, because they come to one exec meeting and we're like, yeah, you can come to all of them. Here's a calendar. Come again. We're going to meet, in a month. And oh yeah, come. We'd love to hear more from you. Hang out. And then they hang out for like 3 meetings, and they're like, so how do I join the exec? And you're like, yeah, there's probably an open position anyway. Because there's almost always a member at large position. So I'm a big advocate of using executive meetings as a tool, as a recruitment tool.
That's a great tip.
Admin relate. Oh, sorry, double tapped. I'd love kind of for you to take this slide, because you've done such a great job with this, though, at the district level. You really have, and so I think.
Yeah. So relationships, I think, are really what helps a PAC function well within a school. And just doing something as simple as stopping in and saying hi, talking to your principal regularly, whether they are the type of principal that is outgoing and looking to build relationships, or if they're more reserved. I've worked with both types. And, there's always a way to build a bridge. And if you can build those bridges and have those conversations when things are easy and simple, it makes it so much easier to have the conversations when things are not easy and simple. When, a parent is having a problem, or you're trying to have a bake sale at your school, and you're trying to understand the new rules and regulations around that. If you have that existing relationship, then you can overcome those hurdles. As well, this works within your PAC. One of the things we have been hearing from various PACs this year is there seem to be some difficulties within PACs with, personalities or people disagreeing and trying to figure out how to disagree and move forward. And that's something we're trying to figure out how we can help them with that. But one of the first things we have realized that we need to recommend is just sit down and have a conversation with a mediator, or someone who can act as a mediator. And very often that's your principal. So again, that's, part of that relationship. As well, there'll be parents within your community who, perhaps the IEP for their child is not going as planned. Their child needs supports, or there's, they're having other difficulties at school. Sometimes there's a place for the PAC to assist in that, and sometimes it is better if that family goes directly to the principal. So, but there can be a time when, especially if it's multiple families, for the PAC to provide some advocacy support. And you're always welcome to reach out to us for guidelines on that, or sort of thoughts or bounce ideas off how to handle that.
Do any of the PACs on the call have a standing meeting with their admin? So this is something I strongly recommend. We've had it at our school for the last 7 or 8 years, or 7 years. So we have it's varied based on the principal and the PAC chair, what time it is, but for us it's generally been like an 8 a.m. Tuesday once a month kind of a thing. Sometimes with more frequency. And we actually, there was some controversy just before I came into the school. So we try to make sure there's always at least 2 parents from the exec in the meeting, and others are welcome to come if they want to. Kind of makes it a bit of a thing, because really like having 5 people from the PAC exec and 1 principal don't always honestly the best for a conversation, but we leave it reasonably open and try to make sure there's always at least 2, whether it's the chair and the vice chair, or chair and treasurer, or chair and person who knows about the thing we're going to talk about, whatever it might be. And the standing meeting has been really helpful for us to just consistently move through stuff. And, I don't know about where you're all at. We've perpetually had the question of what's actually happening, what's going on in the school. And it's helpful just to meet with the principal regularly and have them say, oh, here's what's what. And then we've had our PAC chair say, oh, you need to send an email out saying that's what's going on, or can you give everyone a heads up about that? And I will give a heads up about this. And all those different, we need to schedule this, all those things is really helpful. So, and the other parts of the admin, I think about, and I don't know, specifically the principal and the vice principal, but your other best chair or best friend, sorry, is the office manager. And I forget their current title, but there's someone in that office who is running the thing, and they are known by every student in the school, and they know like often the most. So that's the other person who you really want to have on side, because they know the calendar, they know the whatever. When you get a new principal, they're still there, like really good for continuity. VSB moves principals every 3 to 5 years, but they don't move the office personnel. The office personnel may choose to move, but we had one person for like 15 years, and it was like, you want to know what's going on in the school? Just ask her. So.
100%.
I guess
So
this is a slide to
this
say,
was an amazing
what?
slide that was built by, I think, actually Amanda Hillis a couple years ago. There's huge changes in positions and staff happening at VSB, and so a lot of these roles and names no longer are what they are there. So I am going to work to update this. I'm not sure it's going to look exactly like this when I'm done, but and I'm also going to do it in conjunction with VSB, and we've talked about having another session maybe January. I don't know, we'll figure that out on when you have an issue or a problem, or you're looking to advocate, who to talk to, where to go, who's your first point of contact, your second point of contact. And that would be kind of a layout of who's who at VSB.
And not even just, I think when we do it, it'll be when you have issues, but also just like, how do you get stuff done? Like we just got some trees planted. How do you get trees planted? Well, it's got to go through facilities. Oh, that sucks, but it does. Now we want to put plaques on them. Also has to be through facilities. But anyway, that's a whole other thing. So, yeah. We'll move on.
I mean, you could definitely look at that. Some of it's still relevant, and I'm always happy to talk about what's relevant and what's not. So yeah.
Well, do you want to maybe highlight the Pedro and Pete and what they're doing now and what David's not?
Yeah, so Pedro da Silva, who is in the middle in the yellow, who there is associate superintendent.
Sorry.
So he's one of the people that we're meeting with monthly. And is Pete Nuge even on there? Oh, he is Associate Superintendent Employee Services. He's now he's the position that Pedro was in. And so we're meeting with Pete and Pedro monthly. David Nelson has retired. They don't have anyone who has specifically taken his position yet. And the secretary treasurer, David Green, has retired. It's now Flavia Coughlin. And the
she comes
assistant
from
secretary
Ottawa.
has left. So I don't know who has taken that position. We need to find that out.
All right.
Thanks for coming, Hanny.
Oh, good night, Hanny. I see Hanny's got to go. Thanks for coming. So we'll move a little bit more into the DPAC stuff, but are there any like PAC specific questions that we've not hit on? You're like, hey, I came to this PAC 101 thing, and I really thought you'd say something about topic X. Is there's something? We've got more, but just make sure we're,
Go for it, Sandra.
Is it required? I can look this up too, but is it required to have a PAC exec meeting on top of the general meetings?
I can't remember if it's in the school act or not. It definitely, yeah, to David's point, it definitely depends on your bylaws. I would highly recommend it because it gives, like, basically it's like, when are you gonna get your stuff together? When or whoever the PAC exec gonna have a time to talk and make some decisions about what's going on with whatever, like the website if you've got a website, or the bake sale if you're having a bake sale. I find that a general meeting is a really bad place to get stuff done because there's somewhere between 20 and 60 parents, and you're like,
right, yeah, okay.
Unless your general meetings don't have 20 to 60 parents. I know Kate's my oldest school she went to for kindergarten. It was the executives that went to the executive meetings and the general meetings, and pretty much nobody else. So yeah, I think
and I think in that case, like, you don't have to do it to beat yourself up, but then I'd be like, this meeting is just about how can we get more people engaged, would be the sole purpose of this meeting. What do we think we could do, and yeah, it's hard.
But yeah, bylaws definitely would guide that decision. Yeah.
There you go. So as you're seeing, it's different everywhere. We do both, but yeah, I think too, like, and I've seen it across, like, at the city, there's such different levels of involvement. But for anyone who like wishes they had greater parent involvement, I will tell you, it can change. My school, when I started in kindergarten, had 3 people on the exec, I think. And then a great PAC meeting was like 15, was like, holy smokes, 15 people came, which is also how I ended up on the exec. Not because I was like, I can change this, but because I can't, like I said earlier, I came to the AGM not knowing it was the AGM, and I was like one of 6 people. And the awesome woman I was sitting next to was like, I'll be chair. And she looked at me, and we had just met in the meeting, and she's like, hey, Ian, you'll be a member at large, right? And I was like, what am I going to say no to the 6 other people who are going to do that? Like, yes, I'm in. But she really focused, and we all really focused on like our core goal. We'd spent a lot of time in the past of like trying to figure out what to do with the gaming grant and things. And it was just like, wait, what do parents want? And we did parent surveys. What do you care about? And like, who else do you know? And do you know someone who might come? And have you met anyone? And we really just focused on that community thing. And then for us, we got super lucky and got a fundraiser and it wasn't lucky because we have been lucky because we have more money now than we've ever had before. But that was not why we're lucky. We're lucky because our fundraiser, as I said, was like, let's do this popcorn thing that brings people together. And we started doing things that brought people together in a way that they wanted. So it was not fast. And and now we still often have like, well, like again, like 20, 30 people is kind of our average PAC meeting, and the ones at the beginning of the year have more, and then the ones
Yeah.
at the end of the year, if we have 15, we're like 15 in June, that's amazing because it's June and who cares? So
Shall we move on?
yeah.
Okay, so this slide is it's just an overview of sort of where we are in public education in BC. So you can see the middle line is parent advisory councils, and then DPAC and BCC PAC, and the different key players and stakeholders at each level. And so the other stakeholders and key players at the VSB level are the people that we're meeting with at committee meetings. And then, and you'll see at a later slide, there's actually, for schools that are members of BCC PAC, you have an opportunity to come to the AGM and vote on resolutions in the spring. And so that's an opportunity to actually influence the voice that goes straight to the ministry. I think you can go ahead. Yeah. I think we can go pretty fast through these. So these are our three main and what our bylaws are and what our so I think the key takeaway from this part is that PACs and DPACs are constituted under the BC School Act. We have a constitutional right to be the voice for students in our district and at our schools. DPAC, there's a DPAC at each district in BC, and we're actively right now working to communicate directly with those other districts so we can learn and work with them to advocate to the ministry for things like more funding for computers and that kind of thing. Sorry, if you want to go back just quickly, there's one.
Sorry.
That's okay. So the last point, so at the AGM in the spring, so resolutions are an opportunity. Each school has that is a member of BCC PAC. And if you're not sure if your school is a member, let me know. I can help you find that out. You can write out resolutions if there's something you're concerned about. And they have a whole guide on how to do it, and you can bring it to the AGM and it comes up for discussion and voting, and then all the members vote on it. And if your school is a member and you're not able to go to the AGM in the spring, we can be your proxy. So you still are able to have that voice and have the opportunity to vote on resolutions. All the resolutions are published ahead of time, and we can bring your proxy and vote on whatever your school and your community feels is important. There, I'm done. You want to go ahead, Ian? Oh, I think he's frozen.
Oh. Sorry, I think I'm having internet issues.
That's okay.
Sorry. Hi. Bad
Hi.
internet.
Glad you're back. And so yeah, the School Act gives the DPACs the power to advise the school board on any matter relating to education in the school district. And we're required to have bylaws that govern our meetings, how business is carried out, and the dissolution, what would happen if the DPAC was dissolved. And so we welcome all three levels of representation within the DPAC. So there's DPAC executives, who are the official representatives. There's the PAC rep, so that is a representative from the PAC, who we call the DPAC rep, who basically is that communication conduit between the PACs and the DPAC, letting us know what your PAC is concerned about or is passionate about, and to take information on what DPAC is working on and what we're asking questions about back to your PAC. And then any parent can contact us if they require representation, if they have concerns, if they want us to know how they feel or something they're experiencing. And any parent can attend any DPAC meeting. Execs aren't as well attended by people outside of the executive, but parents are always welcome. You want to go ahead, Ian? I'm just kind of going along here. If you want to break in, feel free to, but whatever you're happy with. So the 4 meetings we have, there's our executive meeting, which is the 2nd Thursday of every month. There's the general meeting, which is the 4th Thursday of every month. For now, we're pretty much online. We've talked about hybrid, but haven't done it. Ad hoc meetings are meetings we have when necessary. Sometimes it's on a particular topic, or, you know, if we have someone who's being voted in, we want to bring them on the executive before the next executive meeting, we can do that. And then we have our AGM which is the last meeting in June. You want to go ahead, Ian?
Yep, I did. Did I?
Yeah.
I did. Maybe it'll catch up. There we go.
Oh, you did. You want to take that one?
Yeah, so well, the relationship was negotiated with past DPAC. Is it basically because of our relationship with VS, we get to be on the standing committees and advisory and ad hoc committees and participate in workshops and consultations in a way that parents by themselves or PACs by themselves not. And so there is an element that we are created by the School Act, but there's also an element that a lot of this depends on the relationship that we have with staff in an ongoing working way, because they could go right down to the minimum which they have in the past. And we're currently working to make sure that we can connect more regularly.
And I guess just to note
that, I don't know if that came through.
No, you were okay. You were okay.
Oh, good.
And just one other note kind of about our relationship with VSB. We do know of other DPACs that actually are not invited to standing committee meetings and are not invited to have seats on ad hoc committees or advisory committees. So that is part of that like relationship building that we are working to do continually to make sure that those seats continue to be ours and that our voice is heard. You want to go ahead, Ian? Oh, I think he's having problems again. Oh, well, he's gone. Oh, no, there he is. Hi.
Hi, I don't know what to tell you. I'm back.
You're back. I'm glad to see that.
We'll see if the internet's working better for me. I did not make that choice. That was the internet deciding it had had enough of me, which fair enough.
Well, we all have those days.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I'm assuming I should advance the slide, but I'm not sure because I've just been in limbo for a minute here.
Okay, so who can I talk to at DPAC? Really, you can talk to any of us. As I said earlier, we really are working to build up our communication channels. So PAC to PAC Slack is a really big one. And I really appreciate the conversation that happens there, suggestions for new channels, you know, opinions or experiences that are shared there. As well, we're working on, and this is going to be eventually worked into our bylaws as well. We're working to support our working groups. And so we have a number of working groups, Black and Indigenous working group, health and safety working group, active transportation, You're testing me, Ian, because the slide is gone and I'm trying to continue on.
Yeah, I think I might say I don't know what's up with my internet. Suddenly it's like the weather. It was great, and now it's not. So sharing is not. Every time I got to share, it wants to quit Zoom for me right now. But the rest of the slides are this slide with all the working groups, and then the stuff about BCC PAC. So maybe we can chat about it.
Yeah, I think we can. I'm just going to go actually quickly to the slide because I can talk about it very easily. It's not something people need to see, but I can't remember the list. There we go. Yeah, okay. So we've got anti-racism, Black and Indigenous working group, active transportation and safe routes, health and safety, and facilities. Those are 5 really active working groups. Oh my God, I forgot the food framework working group. My apologies. I will have to make sure I add that on. Okay, so we have 6 really active working groups. And basically they work in meeting, usually online, once a month or every 2 months, whatever works for them. And then when an issue comes up that pertains to their file, we push that information to them, or if they come across something or they see an issue and they're concerned about it, then they feed us that information. And we find different ways to bring it up. So either we'll bring it up at questions at a committee meeting, we'll send an email directly to the superintendent, we'll bring up the issue or the concern or the question at our monthly meeting with Pete and Pedro. Also in that list, we've got sustainability and childcare. Both of those are inactive right now, mostly because the 2 executives that handled those files, their kids graduated out of the school system. So if anybody is interested in childcare or sustainability and would like to put some time into working on as part of those working groups, it would be great to get them back up and running.
Or if you're a sucker for punishment and you're not doing enough in your community already, and you think, gosh, I wish our community had a group of parents across all of Vancouver thinking and working on topic X, you could also start a fresh working group as well. They to a degree mirror the committees that VSB has, but it's really about what's important to parents in the community, and do we need a group of parents to work on something. So
and one of the things, actually not one of the things, the November general is going to be an opportunity for those working groups to present to the parents. So yeah, if you can send out the invitation to that general to your parent communities, it would be great to get that out there, because I know that the working groups are always looking for new parents to join, and they don't have to be members of PAC exec. They just have to be a parent or caregiver in Vancouver. Yeah. And then the rest of the presentation was basically just on BCC PAC, which I think a lot of that we've already covered, that they are the provincial voice. And the last slide was a form, the nomination form, in case anybody wanted to join DPAC exec. So that's a moment for me to take a glass of water. Or have a glass of water? Does anybody have any questions or thoughts or things you'd wish you'd heard, or? We answered every single question, Ian.
Oh. Winnie.
Go for it, Winnie.
I just want to say, like, this has been really eye-opening for me. Like, I went into PAC thinking that it was all about fundraising, but you know, I've learned that this is really great. Just that whole building community part. As I mentioned, I come from a really small school, and there's very, very low participation in the PAC. So I think, you know, one of my goals is to build more community. This has been really helpful.
Great.
You know, one of the things that helped us to get that started, was so we were lucky. You may be here, you may be not. We were able to have for a while emails go out from our school admin to every parent in the school, because otherwise we could have a whole other night just on maintaining an email list. And we sent out for 2 years in a row, or three, no, maybe, well, almost actually became a traditional thing, but the first couple of years we sent out a survey, which you could build in Google Forms or something cheap and free, just to find out what was it important to parents, and what they cared about, or like, and you can ask what makes our school special? What do you wish there was more of in our school? Whatever that might be. And short is obviously better than long, but somewhere between 5 to 10 questions. It was really helpful for us. And then we just our communication became around the things that parents cared about. And to be honest, we weren't really surprised by any of the things that parents cared about, but because they'd said it and then we were talking about it, it was easier for them to make the link. That's not a be all end all. That's like one of 1,000 little things, but it was a simple thing that really helped us out. And it was also a useful way to remind them that they were all part of the PAC, whether they showed up or not. So
Yeah.
it wasn't so much what do parents want the PAC to do. It was, hey, you're all in the PAC. So what's important to us as the parent community? Because that is us. The school act says that's us. What do you care about, us?
And building in that time just for, like a social moment at the meeting, and whether that's, a Zoom meeting or an in-person meeting, I think can make a big difference in just, building those connections, and especially if you have a teacher or a principal showing up. I know that, parents, especially when we had in-person meetings, always really valued the opportunity to actually talk to the principal. Yeah.
I have a quick question. How do you engage parents that maybe English isn't their first language, or they're not necessarily didn't grow up in Canada, so maybe PAC just, and I know every email we say we try to explain what PAC is, but I just find it's a bit of a barrier. Just again, trying to get more engagement. It's so hard. Same thing. We try and get the school to send out emails. We'll post it on a Facebook group. We send out emails through MailChimp through our own list. But at the end of the day, when we, hold a meeting, it's only probably around 10, and half of that's the executive. So I don't know. I know this isn't a unique challenge. It's just, it's a hard nut to crack.
I can say when I was at Cunningham for a year, we actually had a lot of our messages translated.
Okay.
We had a member of the community, I don't think they were ever actually on exec, who just was really generous with their time.
Okay.
And was willing to, even if they didn't translate the whole document, they'd kind of do like the title and just like maybe like a summary point at the top, and then and usually having those posted on the doors of the school.
Okay.
So if it's the parents or the grandparents dropping off, especially the young kids, they get a chance to see that, and it's literally right there in their face.
Okay.
So
good idea.
Anybody else?
We're pretty bad at this also, where it's worked for us. So we've never had good success in having multiple language groups join the PAC exec. Where we've had some success, and it's fluctuated year in year, is 100% almost based on personal relationships. And so we've had small pockets of people who spoke different languages, and we'd sort of like this little sort of group, and we would have a couple parents from the PAC, generally from the exec, but often from where like just other parents in the school who'd be like, oh, I know, I know them. Is basically, yeah, I'll go talk to so and so, and I can share. And so we would get like involvement. We knew they knew what was going on because a parent was going and talking to them, and then like saying, hey, yeah, they got it, or like they will volunteer, so and so will volunteer at this thing, or whatever. But that's kind of like, again, back to the like building community piece, is like, if you think about what builds community, all of our emails don't build community. All the posters we put up don't build community. and I hate this part because I'm an introvert, and like talking to people in person who I don't know is the worst thing I can spend time doing. But it's also sadly the most fulfilling. And so where we've had, and I'm lucky to meet other parents who are great at it. I'm like, oh, you just like meeting people. Hey, wow.
Yeah.
What could life be like if that was a skill? But finding a couple of those people who are like happy to like, and it just it's talking to humans. Like there's just not a better way to do it.
Okay. Helpful. I've got to get out there.
For a minute, Ian, if that's okay.
Yeah, or find someone who can. Like it's almost never been me because I'm just not great at it. Brandon, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I have a question about sort of communication. So we had talked about our PAC about possibly having a marquee installed in the building in the school district, or not school district, but in our school, because the only communications is our app. And sometimes the app just bombards you with 15 notifications, and you know, people are people. You just scroll through them just so you can delete those notifications. But I was wondering, is there funding for that from the provincial government, or is that something that we have to fundraise ourselves?
So I want to ask you all these questions about the app, but your question, says Marina, I feel it. But so the question is about having a marquee on the school. Tell me more. Do you mean a physical, like, tell me more about what is this structure that you're imagining that communicates things? I just need to understand
Literal billboard with movable letters that you can just say, hey, this week, don't forget to fill out your application or your form or whatever.
Okay.
They do have that in the sense that they print out paper and for like really important stuff, like for the newcomers, they have like banners that they will staple to the fence. But something for like the PAC to also have access to, just like, hey, PAC meeting, need exec or whatever.
Yeah, we could all put one of those out right now. There is no special funding that I'm aware of, though it is great if you know someone to look into grants. We've had that now and then, but don't currently. And your school for sure does not have any extra money, so they won't have money for it. So basically you'd probably have to fundraise and buy it, and then but also figure out with school where it could be stored and lived. I'm assuming this is something that's not physically attached to the building, because then you're also getting facilities involved. But at our school we have I don't know, we've got what is it, like, it's actually an old, no longer used bathroom where we get to store stuff. And so we do have a series of like PAC materials that we've built up over the years, like lighter tables and some other things with that. And we bought signs to say like, don't, walk through the parking lot, stuff like that, whatever. So unfortunately.
So I forget the name of the high school. There's a high school on 16th over here that actually does have a sign that says whatever the high school is, but there's also like sections where you can add letters, or they have little messages like homecoming next week. So that was donated by like parents?
Well, I don't know where so here's the deal. Anything that's on the building or part of the building, or part of this, like part of the school ground, not necessarily on it, it has to be placed there by VSB facilities. And so there will not be money in the VSB facilities budget or in your school's budget, probably most years, to do extra stuff. And so generally this is the kind of stuff that does get end up getting funded by parents, and it, basically the money goes to the school. It could be a direct appeal, it could be 1,000 bake sales, whatever it is. It could be an unnamed donor who just loves helping schools, I wish. And that goes into the PAC account at the school, and the school can do the work with facilities to get that put up. So it's I do think, like, I think our high school in our neighborhood has one as well. I think a lot of the high schools do have a marquee system set up. I think most do, and it's part of the facility deal. So
okay.
Brandon, everyone in the chat wants to know what app you're using, and tell us more.
Oh. I wish Hanny was here because she's our president. It is, I don't know, it's the NRPS app. I guess I can turn on my camera, I guess. Sorry, not the most sophisticated computer person. I'm not sure who set it up. Oh wait, I have the blur. How do you turn the blur thing off?
So it's a school specific app or a PAC specific app?
I don't know.
Okay.
I do know that this, I think, is maybe a school specific, because the principal will send out emails, as well as there's a teacher's representative that will also send out a bunch of notifications for like the news and certain things that were coming up.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So that sounds like a school level thing. I don't know how they're doing that. Definitely my school does not have that. Very cool.
Very cool.
Yeah. I will ask Hanny where this app comes from. We were just told to install this app.
Does anybody else use things like chat groups? Like I know our school, we do we set up division reps. This took a series of like 5 years to get it up to a place, but we now have a whole series of like, it's just an old telephone tree, except now we use the Signal app and for messaging, and it's really useful way to get in touch with a bunch of parents at one time for us, who many of whom do not come to any of our meetings. So I'm a big advocate now for division reps, and I would say if you start to do division reps, because I led it for a number of years at my school, the goal is not to get everyone into so it's not to get every division, and it's not to get everyone in a class into that chat group. It's to create a space where those who want to join. And so if you don't have division reps and you want to start creating like chat groups for them, I think the two things are like, you'll want one general chat group for the people who are leading it, and then one for like, and then there's chat groups for each division. But don't set yourself up to be like, everyone's got to be in it, or we got to get the whole school. Just like start small and build it over time. And if there's like 5 people in a class who find it useful, you've made 5 parents more closely connected than they were before. What a great win.
That's a great attitude. Awesome.
And if you are on the PAC Slack to Slack, I almost called it.
Back to PAC Slack.
I forget who, I'll try to find it, but if you mention the division rep idea and communicating across classes, like we're pretty happy with what we've got at our school, but I have some of what others are doing. And wow, there's some really, really good, helpful thoughts on how parents are doing it. So yeah, and David makes a really good point. So again, the goal of division reps is around connecting classes and connecting community. It's not about like dealing with the teacher. And you do need to be ready to set some standards for behaviors in chats and like all of that stuff. It can be a mess, and some teachers, my sister included, often don't like this idea at all, because it can turn into a shit show, real fast. But where properly handled by the PAC and monitored and in alignment with admin and like clarity of what it is and guidelines for behavior, like, and those things, certainly at our school, we have found it a really helpful way to keep parents. And I like was really surprised. Like I started it at my school because we kind of thought we had to, and it was very unsuccessful for a little while, or so I thought. And then I found out like 2 years after, it was like this one class had really gotten into it. And there was never really great PAC communication with them, and we never really heard back, but they loved it so much they were like planning parties, and like they carried on that PAC, like that own chat group for like 3 years, and they still have a chat group. And I was like, oh, well, cool. It didn't necessarily achieve all of our PAC goals, but that's so great to hear. Like that wouldn't have happened without this thing. So you don't always get what you think you're going to get.
It would be really interesting to hear, or if you felt like putting on the PAC to PAC Slack what the like guidelines your PAC used or uses
Yeah.
to guide those groups, because I know at TIE we kept talking about creating something like that, but the concern over online behavior and setting those standards or guidelines always stopped that from
We've had to wait in. Like I've had a principal say like, this is a crazy thing going on in this thing, and this is a problem. And it was like one class, and we went in. But my experience has been that the crazy thing happening in the chat group is happening anyway, but now we actually can see it. And we have a place to say, hey, parents, what the heck are you thinking? And we do not behave like this and whatever. And it's actually like a way to set, you do have to be careful. I don't want to like it does take work, and there's a whole bunch around it, and setting them up at the beginning of the year, like we all kind of hate, and I'd love better methodology. And I think there's some other schools who have it that I keep meaning to learn from. But the good thing that's sometimes a really bad thing about humans is we have this like natural thing to conform to the group. And so if you set really strong group norms, it's weirder to break out of that than it is to stay within it. But it does require setting those group norms. Anyway, it's worked well for us.
Yeah,
I don't know.
that's cool.
I'm all about like, I try it like, maybe there'll be a problem. I'd rather find out there is a problem than imagine the problem. Oh, there is a problem. Now deal with the problem. Anyway, it's almost 9. We should probably wrap up, but I really appreciate everyone coming, and we'll make sure there's space for other questions if there are other questions.
Thank you, everybody who came tonight. I really appreciate the time, and feel free to share this with the rest of your exec. And if you think of any questions late tonight or tomorrow or whenever, always reach out. We're only an email or a message away. And if we don't respond, it's not because we don't want to. Probably another email came right after yours or right before yours. So
or we were making dinner.
Yes.
And thank you for volunteering. Like, I know you probably are getting so many high fives at school, and people are like, oh my gosh, you're on the PAC, you're the coolest, we really appreciate it. And they're always saying thank you. But just sincerely, like, this is literally the stuff that makes community happen. And people talk about community, but you're actually like making community and being part of the community. It means coming to a meeting from 7 till 9 on a Thursday night when we would all, like, Netflix is still on right now, right? I could be doing that. And just, it requires this connection and actually showing up and doing it. And as you can tell from your own schools, a lot of people are not, and a lot of them have really super valid reasons that I have no judgment at all. But I really appreciate that you all step up and engage. It's like how things move forward and how things get better. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. This has been really helpful.
Awesome.
Reach out anytime.
Oh, I will. I will.
I dropped a
Might
link in the
regret that.
chat for the service that Norma Rose Point must be using. So there's a service which basically I think generates apps for schools,
Gotcha.
and they must be using that. And I have no idea how they're funding it or something, but that's an interesting product. I've never heard of it before.
That's wild.
Cool. Nice
Thank
sleuthing.
you.
Yeah.
Thanks for writing that down.
Sweet. All right.
All right. Good night,
I'm gonna
guys.
put my kid to bed.
Yeah.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
everyone.
Bye.
Thanks so
Good
much.
night,
Bye.
everyone. Thank you.